my wife is having an affair with her coworker and I found out in the most unexpected way. I never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but here I am. My whole world has been turned upside down and I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. I guess I should start from the beginning. My wife, Angela, and I have been married for 8 years now. We met in college, dated for a few years and got married shortly after graduation. Things were great at first. We were young, in love and ready to take on the world together. We both landed good jobs in our fields and started building our life together. About 3 years ago, Angela got a new job at a big marketing firm downtown. She was excited about the opportunity, and I was happy for her. The job came with better pay and more responsibilities, which seemed like a great step forward in her career. She'd come home talking about her new coworkers and the projects she was working on. One name that kept coming up was Mark, her team lead. At first I didn't think much of it, and Angela would mention how helpful Mark was, how he was showing her the ropes and helping her adjust to the new work environment. But over time I started to notice some changes in Angela. She was working later hours, often coming home well after dinner time. She'd be constantly checking her phone, smiling at messages. When I'd ask about it, she'd just say it was work stuff. I tried to ignore the nagging feeling in my gut. I didn't want to be that jealous, suspicious husband. Angela and I had always had a strong relationship built on trust, and I didn't want to jeopardize that by making unfounded accusations. So I kept my concerns to myself and tried to focus on our life together. Last month was our 8th wedding anniversary. I had planned a surprise weekend getaway to a nice beach resort about 3 hours away. I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to reconnect and spend some quality time together away from the stresses of work and daily life. When I told Angela about the trip, she seemed excited but also a bit hesitant. She said she'd need to check if she could get the time off work. A few days before the trip, Angela told me that she couldn't make it. Apparently, there was a big project coming up and her team needed to work over the weekend to meet the deadline. I was disappointed, but I understood her job was important to her and I didn't want to make her feel guilty about it. I decided to cancel the trip and planned a nice dinner at home instead. The night of our anniversary, I got home early to start preparing the dinner. I had bought Angela's favorite wine and was planning to cook her favorite meal. As I was setting up, I realized I had forgotten to buy candles. Not wanting to ruin their surprise, I decided to check Angela's craft supplies in the spare room to see if she had any candles I could use. As I was rummaging through her craft boxes, I accidentally knocked over a stack of papers while picking them up. A small notebook fell open. I wasn't trying to snoop, but a line caught my eye. I can't stop thinking about last night with Mark. My heart sank. I knew I shouldn't read more, but I couldn't help myself. Their notebook was filled with entries detailing Angela's feelings for Mark, their secret meetings and intimate moments they had shared. It was like a punch to the gut. The woman I loved, their woman I thought I knew, had been living a double life. I sat there on the floor of the spare room, surrounded by Angela's craft supplies and holding this notebook that had shattered my world. I don't know how long I sat there trying to make sense of what I had just discovered. Part of me wanted to confront Angela immediately to demand answers and explanations, but another part of me was scared of what those answers might be. I heard Angela's car pull up in their driveway. Panic set in. I quickly put everything back as I had found it and left the room. I couldn't face her, not yet. I needed time to think, to process. I sent her a text saying I wasn't feeling well and had gone to bed early. It was a cowardly move, I know, but I just couldn't deal with pretending everything was normal that night. As I lay awake listening to Angela move around their house, my mind was racing. How long had this been going on? How could she do this to us? To our marriage was everything we had built it together just to lie. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions of daily life all while carrying this devastating secret. Angela seemed to notice something was off, but I brushed off her concerns. I needed time to figure out what to do next. I know I should confront her, but I'm terrified of what that conversation will bring. Part of me wants to believe there's an explanation, that maybe I misunderstood what I read, but deep down I know the truth. My wife is having an affair with her coworker, and our marriage may never recover from this betrayal. I'm lost and don't know what to do next. How do I confront her? Should I reach out to Mark's wife if he's married? Do I just pack up and leave? Any advice would be appreciated, because right now I feel like I'm drowning at it. Thank you all for your comments and support. I'm overwhelmed by the responses and advice. I'll try to respond to some comments and we update when I have more information or have decided on a course of action. Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone for their support and advice on my original post. The past week has been a whirlwind of emotions and events, and I'm still trying to process everything that's happened, but I promised an update, so here goes. After reading all your comments, I realized I couldn't keep living in limbo. I needed answers and I needed them now. So the day after my post, I decided to confront Angela. I waited until she got home from work and asked her to sit down because we needed to talk. I started by asking her about her relationship with Mark. At first she tried to play it off as just a work friendship, but I could see the panic in her eyes. That's when I told her about finding the notebook. The look on her face, I'll never forget it. It was like watching someone's world crumble in real time. Angela broke down crying, admitting to the affair. She said it had been going on for about 6 months. Apparently it started after a late night at work when they were the only two left in their office. One thing led to another, and before they knew it, they were in a full-blown affair. I asked her why risk our marriage, our life together. She gave me the classic lines about feeling neglected, about how Mark understood her in ways I didn't. It was all I could do not to laugh bitterly. I thought back to all the times I had supported her career, all the late nights I had spent alone while she was working, only to find out she was with him. The conversation went on for hours. Angela begged for forgiveness, promised to end things with Mark, suggested couples counseling, but with every word she said I felt myself growing colder. This wasn't the woman I married. This was a stranger wearing my wife's face. I told Angela I needed time to think. I packed a bag and went to stay with my brother for a few days. Being away from the house from Angela gave me some clarity. I realized I couldn't just forgive and forget. The trust was broken and I wasn't sure it could ever be repaired, but I also knew I couldn't just walk away without some kind of, I don't know, retribution, closure. That's when I remembered something Angela had mentioned offhandedly months ago. Their company had a strict policy against inter-office relationships, especially between superiors and subordinates. Mark, being Angela's team lead, definitely fell into that category. I started thinking about how I could prove their affair to the company. That's when I remembered Angela's habit of backing up her phone to our home computer. With a sinking feeling, I realized there might be evidence of their affair in those backups. When I got home, I checked the computer. Sure enough, there were hundreds of messages between Angela and Mark, many of them explicit. But what really caught my attention were several video files with a mix of dread and morbid curiosity. I opened one. It was security camera footage from their office. The timestamp showed it was from after hours, and there were Angela and Mark in a very compromising position on Mark's desk. I felt sick watching it, but I also knew I had the evidence I needed. I copied all the relevant files onto a USB drive. Then I sent an anonymous email to their company's HR department, attaching some of the less explicit messages and mentioning the existence of video evidence. I made sure to emphasize the breach of company policy and their potential liability issues. The next day, all hell broke loose. Angela came home early in tears. She and Mark had been called into HR, confronted with their evidence, and summarily fired. She was angry, demanding to know if I had anything to do with it. I didn't deny it. We had another long heated conversation. Angela accused me of ruining her career out of spite. I reminded her that she had ruined our marriage out of selfishness. In the end, we both went to bed angry and hurt. As I write this, I'm not sure what the future holds. Angela and I are still living in the same house, but it feels like we're worlds apart. I know many of you advised against trying to reconcile, and right now I don't think I want to. The Angela I loved, the woman I thought I knew, doesn't exist anymore. I'm meeting with a lawyer next week to discuss my options. I don't know if I'm ready to file for divorce yet, but I want to be prepared. In the meantime, I'm focusing on taking care of myself. I've started hitting the gym again, reconnecting with friends I had neglected, and trying to rediscover who I am outside of this marriage. Thank you all again for your support. I'll update again when there are significant developments. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and a lot has happened. I apologize for the delay in posting, but I needed some time to sort things out and get my head straight. After my last post, things with Angela went from bad to worse. The loss of her job seemed to push her over the edge. She alternated between begging for forgiveness and lashing out at me for ruining her life. It was emotionally exhausting, and I found myself withdrawing more and more. I met with a lawyer as planned. He laid out my options and advised me on how to protect myself legally and financially. It was a tough conversation, but it made me realize that I needed to start thinking about my future, a future without Angela. About 2 weeks ago, I finally made the decision to end our marriage. I sat Angela down and told her I wanted a divorce. I half expected another emotional outburst, but to my surprise she just nodded quietly. I think deep down we both knew it was coming. We agreed to a trial separation. While we sort out the details of their divorce, I asked Angela to move out, as I'm the one who bought our house before we were married. She didn't put up much of a fight, which was both a relief and oddly painful. It was like watching their last embers of our relationship finally burn out. Angela moved out last weekend. Watching her pack up her things and leave was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Despite everything, there's still a part of me that loves the person I thought she was, but I know I'm making the right decision for myself. The house feels empty now, but also peaceful. I'm slowly reclaiming the space, making it mine again. I've started redecorating, getting rid of things that remind me too much of Angela and our life together. It's a small step, but it feels like progress. I've also been focusing on rebuilding my support network. I've reconnected with old friends and even made some new ones through a local sports league I joined. It's been good to have people to talk to who aren't connected to my history with Angela. As for work, I've thrown myself into my job. My boss has been understanding about their situation and has given me some interesting projects to focus on. It's been a welcome distraction from everything else going on in my life. I know the road ahead won't be easy. There are still a lot of details to sort out with the divorce, and I'm sure there will be tough days ahead, but for the first time in months I feel like I can breathe again. I'm starting to see a future for myself, one that isn't defined by Angela's betrayal. Thank you all again for your support throughout this ordeal. Your advice and encouragement have been a lifeline during some of my darkest moments. I'll post another update once the divorce is finalized, but for now I'm taking it one day at a time and focusing on healing and moving forward. Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I'm finally ready to share what I hope will be my final post on this chapter of my life. The divorce has been finalized and I'm officially a single man again. Their process wasn't easy. There were arguments over asset division, moments of doubt, and days when the pain felt as fresh as it did when I first discovered Angela's affair, but we got through it, and I'm proud of myself for standing my ground and not letting guilt or misplaced loyalty sway me from my decision. Angela and I haven't spoken since the day we signed the divorce papers. It was a surreal moment sitting there in the lawyer's office, ending 8 years of marriage with a few signatures. Part of me wanted to say something profound to find some closure, but in the end we just nodded at each other and went our separate ways. I've heard through mutual friends that Angela has moved to another city for a fresh start. I wish her well genuinely. The anger has faded, replaced by a kind of sad acceptance. We both made mistakes, hers more egregious than mine, but I'm trying to let go of the bitterness. As for me, I'm doing better than I ever thought possible. 6 months ago the house is completely redecorated now. Is space that's entirely my own. I've taken up new hobbies, started traveling more, and even went on a few casual dates. Nothing serious yet, but it's nice to know that part of my life isn't over. Work has been a saving grace throughout all of this. I threw myself into my job and it paid off. I recently got a promotion. It feels good to be recognized for my efforts, especially after everything that happened. I've also been working on myself. I've started journaling, which has been surprisingly helpful in processing my emotions. I've rekindled old friendships and made new ones. Their support system I've built has been invaluable. Looking back on this whole experience, I can see how much I've grown. I'm stronger now, more self-aware, and I have a clearer sense of what I want out of life and relationships. The pain of Angela's betrayal will always be a part of my story, but it no longer defines me. To anyone going through something similar, know that it does get better. It's not easy and there will be days when you want to give up, but keep pushing forward. You're stronger than you know. Thank you all for being there throughout this journey. Your support, advice and kindness have meant more than I can express. This will be my last update on this situation, but I leave you with a heart full of gratitude and hope for the future. Here's to new beginnings and the chapters yet to be written.